Good morning, Jay. I think you nailed it. I think if you're a Giant or Jet fan, you wake up this morning, you feel really good about what your general managers did yesterday. And look, you never know if any of these kids are going to turn out to be as good as you hope they're going to be. But, you know, if you go into it, you say to yourself, okay, we want to come out with edge rushers. We want to come out with an offensive tackle. We want to come out with a wide receiver, and a cornerback for the Jets. You know, we talked about it yesterday. We thought Sauce Gardner was going to be a Jet.
Yeah.
Okay. We know that they've been trying to trade for a wide receiver. I believe the reason they didn't trade for a wide receiver, honestly, is Woody Johnson didn't want to pay anybody. That's what I believe. I believe that they don't want to pay Deebo Samuel. Who knows? I don't believe that they wanted to pay A.J. Brown. I don't believe they want to get the headache that is Marquise Brown that was traded from the Ravens to the Cardinals, because he's going to want more money eventually. So there's a lot of things that are in play here. But the moment that Derek Stingley Jr. was taken with the third overall pick with the Houston Texans, you got to believe that Joe Shane was doing backflips, because that meant that Joe Shane knew that he was going to have an edge rusher and any one of the, and he'll have a tackle there that he would be more than happy to take. And the reason they ends up taking Kayvon Thibodeau with the fifth overall pick is because, maybe Carolina would have taken him.
That's right. So that was the plan going in, that they wanted to take Evan Neal at number 5, but because the way things shook out before that fifth pick, Joe Shane said, okay, that could be dangerous for us if we took Evan Neal, if we also wanted to get that edge rusher, specifically Kayvon Thibodeau. So that's why they ended up taking him at 5, and they knew they were going to have a pick of either Ekwonu or Neal at 7.
It's perfect.
And they got their guy. They got Evan Neal, and someone who has played a ton of right tackle. They said right off the bat he's going to be the starting right tackle. And you're fixing your offensive line, and then you're also getting a guy that could potentially get you back to that dominant defensive line pass rush Giants success story that we have seen in the past. When the Giants were good in recent memory, they were getting after the quarterback with great defensive linemen who were relentless, and that's what Kayvon Thibodeau needs to be for them. And I happen to love his attitude. I happen to love his personality. He talks about his brand. So what? I mean, a ton of these guys do. I mean, this is what pro sports is these days. And if anything, this is, and even though this is the Giants, but Rob Saleh talks about it all the time. Like, you know how you motivate these guys? You motivate these guys by, dangling that contract in front of them. And guess what you have to do to get that big contract? Play well and play consistently well. And that's what Kayvon Thibodeau knows he has to do to be able to build that brand that he talks about.
Right. So I also take out of this draft a couple of things. Number one, like I said, the Jets didn't want to trade for one of these wide receivers. The kid that they ended up drafting is he's shot out of a cannon. This is like a 4.38 guy.
Yeah.
He's got long arms. He is a playmaker. And if Jamison Williams did not get hurt at Alabama, I think he would have been the number one drafted wide receiver. Drake London ended up going number 1 as a wide receiver, going to the Atlanta Falcons. And that's kind of interesting because they had Drake London and they have Kyle Pitts down there. So they're building their offense slowly over the next couple of years. Maybe they'll be a force to be reckoned with. But they end up getting this kid Wilson, and and we talked about him yesterday.
Yep.
And we felt like, he was going to be either the first or the second wide receiver off the board. And, the Jets get a player there that, they don't have to pay immediately. It's a 5-year deal, as we all know, with these rookie wide receivers and rookie first-round draft choices. And, in 3 years, you'll have to deal with it if he gets going. Like these other guys in the second round have gotten going.
Well, it's a good problem to have.
It is a good problem to have. And I don't know. And then the trade back in and get, a pass rusher themselves, who many had as a top 10 pick. Okay, so there's a reason why the kid fell.
Jermaine Johnson, we're talking about, out of Florida State.
There's a reason why this kid fell. Everybody thought he was a top 10 pick. They ended up getting him with the 26th pick. I don't know why he fell. He probably doesn't know why he fell, or maybe he does know. I don't know. But there's always a risk that is going to be associated, and then you kind of balance, okay, this guy's got all this ability. Can we get him here and hopefully add him to our team and get the best out of him? Or and can we get him a second contract? That you just never know how many of these guys will get second contracts. That's the thing. But on paper, flat out, both teams got guys that should be day one starters for them.
I got to tell you, I was thinking that Jermaine Johnson was there was a chance that the Jets were going to take him at 10. quite frankly, because I thought that they were going to go with 2 impact players on defense.
Something happened.
Something happened and he dropped. So the fact that they were able to get Garrett Wilson at 10 and then Jermaine Johnson at 26 trading back into the first round is spectacular. Now, Jermaine Johnson was one of those last chance university guys, where he went to a junior college,
right?
And he ended up on that Netflix series. Then he ended up getting to, but I like that about him because he had faced that adversity early on in his collegiate career. He got through that junior college. He got to Florida State. He excelled at Florida State, and then he ended up being a first-round pick. So, there might have been something there that these GMs didn't like, maybe in the interview process, whatever. But to me, this guy saw adversity early on in his football life, overcame it to become a first-round pick. So that to me is impressive.
Well, we'll see what happens. You remember the Jets a few years back, and this wasn't with Joe Douglas. They took the kid Ja'Kai Polite.
Yes, from Florida.
And everybody's, this is great value. What a great value.
He was like a 4th-round pick, though, right?
No, he was a 2nd-round pick.
He was a 2nd-round pick?
Or 3rd-round pick. He was a 3rd-round pick.
Okay.
And everybody said, well, this guy had a 1st-round grade and all of a sudden, and it just didn't work.
Right.
So, again, like I dropped in the draft.
Sure.
Okay, listen.
Dan Marino dropped in the draft.
Right. I'd had much higher opinion of myself than somebody else did, I guess. I don't know. But it does happen for reasons, and you don't know why. Nobody ever is really, truly honest with you.
Sure.
But there's a reason why it happens. And, everybody's all jacked up about this kid, and he seems like says the right things and everything's fine. But there's a reason why top 10 talents fall to the bottom of the first-round draft, or some guys actually fall out of the first round because their issues, whatever they may be, are so significant that the teams don't want to risk, a high draft capital. So I sit here this morning. I think both teams got starters for themselves on day one. I love what the Giants did. I'm glad they went and got the tackle. These are, I guess, the Thibodeau pick is a sexy pick because everybody knows who he is.
Oh, yeah, right. He made himself known.
Right. The Evan Neal pick, I think most Giant fans felt like get the offensive lineman, whether it be Aquano or Evan Neal, and it happened. The Jets taking Gardner. It was almost like everybody knew that they were taking him. The real, I mean, like out of nowhere, it's Derek Stingley Jr. And maybe it's because of his, of where he came from. His dad was a football player, his grandfather was a football player, that kind of thing.
A lot of LSU guys turn out to be great players too in the NFL.
He's an LSU player, right?
Yeah.
So and you could see all the highlights that he has, all the values that coaches want, and I'm sure he has a great football IQ on the field. The other interesting thing that happened, like last night, the Eagles getting A.J. Brown, great job by Howie Roseman again. They never sit still. They got Jordan Davis, that big defensive lineman from Georgia.
Booger McFarland, by the way, I don't know which broadcast you were watching. The one in the hotel, the only one I could get was the ESPN one, was killing the guy.
Yeah, I don't know why.
They're showing a bunch of film of him giving up and late in games. And, I mean, that's, we were talking about why after the combine in the 40 that he ran, was he not skyrocketing up the boards like Trayvon Walker? Well,
it's the hard part. It's the hard part.
Yeah. Right, exactly.
Like, does he have the heart to be great? Does he want to be great? Or is he just so big and fast and strong? Does he tend to be a little bit lazy?
Yeah, and there was plenty of film to sort of back that point up. I mean, it looked like there were certain times he was just taking plays off, in critical games.
That defense was so good down there in Georgia. Trayvon Walker didn't have stats.
Yeah.
And I was thinking that if I were an offensive coach and we were getting ready to play Georgia, like you got to pick your poison against this team. They had great linebackers, great defensive line, and a really good secondary. And you're like, okay, what are we doing here? So maybe that's one of the reasons why the stats weren't all that great, because they all had a hand in being a great unit. And we'll find out. We'll find out, is it Trayvon Walker the great player, or is Jordan the great player? I personally think he is a very interesting dude, and he's going to be with Fletcher Cox.
That's right. And he's also probably going to replace him eventually.
But he'll be with Fletcher Cox, and Fletcher Cox will show him how to become a true pro. So I think that's a really good pick by the Eagles. And then the other interesting thing for me was the trade of Marquise Brown out of Baltimore.
Well, both Browns being traded, A.J. Brown and Marquise Brown. Now, the A.J. Brown one wasn't as surprising, even though Mike Vrabel came out and said, hey, as long as I'm here, he's going to be here. Well, obviously, that didn't work out, which is just so funny. That's why you can never trust anybody who says anything about a player, a general manager, or a coach. But the Marquise Brown one was essentially out of nowhere. Nobody was talking about it. He wasn't in the same situation yet as some of these other wide receivers with a contract, which he eventually would be. There's not a lot of weapons there for Lamar Jackson in Baltimore, and it seemed like this was a distinct sort of change,
like a shot across the bow.
Yeah.
Like, hey, we're taking over our team, like, you know. And I again, you don't know what the conversations are within the building about with the agents for these teams and these players, and you don't know. And remember, Steve Bisciotti, after Deshaun Watson got that big contract in Cleveland, said this is going to make this a lot more difficult on us dealing with our negotiations with our players. And obviously, he's talking about Lamar Jackson. Lamar Jackson was not happy. He, put out the old WTF.
I mean, what
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. That's what he did. So. It's interesting what they're doing in Baltimore, and look, you got to remember both Marquise Brown and I think Lamar Jackson were lobbying for Antonio Brown.
Oh God!
And I think John Harbaugh and that whole group down there, enough of this.
Enough.
We got to get back to being the Baltimore Ravens.
Yeah, which is not a lot of flash and bull crap. That's generally not how they do things down there. The Pittsburgh Steelers sat there quietly and took Kenny Pickett at number 20, the only quarterback to be taken in the first round. I thought that was pretty cool, his reaction. He was obviously overcome with emotion. It seemed like they were not thrilled with the fact that he was dropping as they were showing him on TV, but he ended up at a great place. I saw the Mike Tomlin phone call. So only one quarterback taken, number 20 overall.
I've been there, done that. So
well, Malik Willis and Matt Corral, there was a lot of people out there that thought that there would still be 3 or maybe even 4 quarterbacks taken in the first round, and it ended up being 1. So, Malik Willis is the biggest name that didn't get selected in the first round. But, Kenny Pickett, you think about a guy who played essentially next door to the Pittsburgh Steelers at the University of Pittsburgh.
They know him.
And then he just moves right over there to be the heir apparent to Ben Roethlisberger. I don't think it could work out any better for the young man. And I know he's a great kid. I don't know if he's going to end up being, Ben Roethlisberger, but he is. I think the best way to describe him is Joe Burrow light. He's a fifth-year guy. If there was any knock on him coming out of school, it was the fact that he had small hands. There's not a thing about his personality that you can dislike.
Right.
And he's got some guts and he's got some stones, and I'm excited to see how that works out for them.
I think it's going to work out great for them. And the fact that those other quarterbacks like Desmond Ridder from Cincinnati, Malik Willis, and of course Matt Corral, that they're all sitting there. And I was like, my draft year, the first and the second round were in the same day. I think the third round, fourth round were too. I can't remember. So I didn't have to sleep on it, or not be able to sleep on it, and then get picked the second day.
Sure, yeah.
It's a crushing blow to the psyche of the player.
And Malik Willis was there too,
right? And I think those players probably just feel awful.
Yeah,
and I feel bad for them. But like I always say. In the NFL, it's not about your first contract. It's really about the second contract that truly validates you. Just ask A.J. Brown. Just ask Christian Kirk. Just ask, Deebo Samuel when he gets his new contract. Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes. It's the second contract that says you're great. And so they'll have plenty of time to figure it out, and hopefully they go to good, solid places. And when their chance comes, they make the most of it.
And we can, I guess at this point, officially put the Deebo Samuel to the Jets rumors to bed. After the Garrett Wilson pick, you would think.
Yeah, you would think.
It's over. Absolutely over.
Unless he traded back in to go get the pass rusher, right, Jermaine Johnson.
Yeah.
So I think now
it's over.
It's over.
Yeah. So you still got a lot of weapons. You still have a lot. Excuse me, Elijah Moore, Garrett Wilson, C.J. Uzama. Tyler Conklin, Corey Davis, Braxton Berrios.
Yeah, they got players.
There's enough guys there on offense to help out Zach Wilson without going out to get someone like Deebo Samuel or A.J. Brown, as great as that would have been. But then again, you also would have been having to pay those guys an exorbitant amount of money.
So it also tells me that they believe in Mekhi Becton too, by the way.
Yeah.
This is the thing now that I take out of this is that, maybe Rob Saller's right. Maybe he will be a ball of butcher knives, as he put it. I don't know. But, last year, Elijah Vera Tucker, in the first round, good solid pick, right? You got Elijah Moore, who I love. That's a good solid pick. It all comes down to Zach Wilson now.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
And the true 100% greatness that Joe Douglas sees in him.
Thank you for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe. And don't forget to hit the red bell so you're notified when we have new content.